Hi, I'm Bry Cox with BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com, and for today's question, I've actually got a little bit more that I've been thinking about from a previous question, which was on time management. And the question was generally like, how do you have time to do all the things that you need to do, particularly as a photographer, right? And this was actually from a female photographer who's a mom and has kids, and just feels a little bit overwhelmed, particularly with all of the work you have to do, because a lot of times people get into photography thinking it's just fun, it's easy, right? You just take pictures and everybody just pays you, and there's really nothing else you ever have to do. You just take pictures and you're at happy events. When the truth is, yeah, it is fun to take pictures, but there's also a lot of other things to do. There's all the business stuff. There's all the accounting, right? There's like, even if you have an accountant, you have to prepare reports and send things over. There's all the back end, the retouching, the meeting with clients, the dealing with things on the phone, setting appointments and all of that. So her question was, how do you handle all this? And we answered with my friend Trajan, basically just in terms of, lists and calendars and things like that. But there's a big point that I got thinking about right after that was kind of bugging me, and I need to talk about it. So it is on pricing. So pricing is a big way to free up more of your time. That is a big aspect to time management. So let me give you an example. So like years ago, there was I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. I was listening to the radio, and this photographer called in, and she says, "I'm just so wildly successful," was her exact phrase, "but I don't know what to do." And his point was like, okay, well, define wildly successful. And she said, well, I just book everything. Everybody that calls me books, and I just have all these clients, and I'm just so busy. And then the more he drilled down and asked her questions, it turned out she wasn't really making any money at all. She felt like she was, but she really wasn't, because she was so cheap. And that's why she felt like she was successful, because she was busy. Busy made her feel successful, but she wasn't actually accomplishing any of her goals. She wasn't able to really, she kind of had a side job, and all of that money was kind of filtering over. And it happens a lot too if you have like a spouse. They may go, I don't think you're making very much money, because I feel like I'm writing more checks for gear and equipment and lab bills than you're actually, bringing back into the group family fund. So pricing is a big thing. And there's a older rule, it's called the Pareto principle. It's actually from an Italian economist named Pareto, and he kind of determined that 80% of the wealth in Italy was held in the hands of 20% of the people, and that 20% of the wealth was held in the hands of 80%. And he kind of did a lot more study, and he kind of realized, as human nature, you can take any group, any population, and divide them into 80-20, and you'll realize that 20% produce 80%, and 80% produce 20%. So we can take that into our business, and you can kind of, without even having to use fancy software, you can look at your customers and say, you know what? I don't care what price you are, if you're the most expensive photographer or the cheapest photographer, here's my customers that come in every year. I guarantee you that 20% of those clients are giving you 80% of your return, and 80% of your clients are only giving you 20% of the return. And you can say the same for time, that 80% of your time only gives you 20% of the return, 20% of your time gives you 80% of the return. So in terms of pricing, the idea is we want to focus more and more on the 20% that bring us 80% of the return. And in many ways, we still want these other 80%, but we want to encourage them to either spend more, right? But the problem is that's the people we hear from the most. That's 80% of the people. And if they're like, oh, you're so expensive, you might start to think, you know what, I'm really expensive, when the truth is you may be just expensive for that group. But there's a lot of photographers that can handle a lot of people. And so one great way to free up some time is to just say, right, I'm pricing myself for this group, and in effect kind of firing these people. At the same time, I also don't want to completely discourage them. I want to try to move them up. But we want to focus on those top 20. And what that does, it frees up 80% of your time. So for this particular photographer, if you're a lady and you have a family and kids, and one great thing you can do is just say, I'm only going to work maybe 2 days a week. Maybe Thursdays and Fridays is my day, you could say. And I can't remember if you had equipment or not, but maybe like you could always rent gear, or you could set up all your appointments, whatever it is. Those are the days, and you just line up all your appointments those days, and you say, I have to charge more. This really is a very expensive business. You don't realize how expensive it is. I have to charge more. This is what I'm charging. And then just let the rest of that go. And what you'll find is you have more time to focus on those greater clients that will spend more, and you'll get more of those kinds of clients, which means at some point down the road, you take that, becomes your new 100%, and you go, okay, now I've got so many clients in this range, let's take that top 20%, and we keep doing it again and again, year after year. So Pareto principle is a great way to think of yourself in terms of pricing and time. And I have my friend Trajan King. Do you have anything you want to add on this? Does he have any thoughts? I guarantee he has some thoughts because he has a big background in business and efficiency. So come on in. I didn't prep you, but I'm just going to ask.
Okay.
He's also periscoping.
I'm also periscoping right now. We've got some people on Periscope. I love the Pareto principle because it allows you to not waste time, like you said in the example. And it also allows you to create your service based on who you want to serve. Do you want to be the Walmart of your industry, or do you want to be the Neiman Marcus or the higher end? And that's all determined largely by what price you set.
Yeah.
Whether you're setting a lower price and serving a lot of people, or setting a higher price and serving a few people, and then you really get into the business. So I think it also relates to what kind of service do you want to provide? Do you want to provide a little bit of service to a lot of people, or do you want to get really in depth and provide a high quality service, like in photography or in consulting or whatever, and really get into their business?
Yeah.
And just serve really deeply a few key clients.
And I think like in terms of photography, it's a custom business where, say, something like Walmart or McDonald's is a conveyor belt system where you have the ability to just serve millions of people and just kind of let the system run, because you've got your costs and everything so low that you can just get your price low and just handle millions. Where photography, you're creating something fresh from scratch every single time for every new client. So it has to be higher, I think.
Right. And where a lot of entrepreneurs have difficulty is they try to price low and service high. So they're trying to provide gold star service for a very low price, like that lady in the example. But those two don't go together.
Yeah.
And then if you try to do the inverse, you try to price, what'd I say?
So price high
and serve low, then that's an equal problem, because you're not giving the service commensurate with the price. So the service and the price need to be equal. You just need to define what level you want to be on, and then put systems in place in your business to be able to provide that level of service. Whether it's high touch, a lot of interaction, or systems like McDonald's and Walmart have, where you've built a system that can provide that value of service.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of websites the subscriptions cost $10 or $20. There's no customer service.
Right.
You're on your own. And the customers realize, I'm only paying $10. I don't expect to be able to call somebody and have an account rep. And usually they've got a higher level program where you pay a higher price per month to be able to get that kind of service.
Yeah, and you don't go to, say, Walmart or McDonald's and expect to talk to somebody who's kind. Right? You just don't.
That's true. They're different people.
There's different people. You're like, you kind of expect to be treated poorly.
Right. But on the other hand,
if I went to Nordstrom, I expect to be treated kindly.
Right.
And I expect them to remember me and to know me and to just care about my needs.
Right. And here's a topical example of somebody that's in between, not doing either well, is Macy's. Macy's their stock has tanked this year, and they're laying off thousands of people because they are a high-priced product, but you go into their store and you can't find anybody.
Yeah.
You want somebody to help you, and you're like, does anybody work here? I can't actually find somebody to sell me something.
Yeah.
But their prices are just as high as Nordstrom, but their service is
And it's
low.
hard to be in the middle, because what do you say?
Right.
You can't say you're the best, and you can't say you're cheap.
Right.
So you're like, we're just in the middle.
Yeah.
We're just kind of nothing. We're medium gray. We're beige.
And nobody wants beige.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Price is a great factor in terms of time management. If you're too busy, pretty sure you're too cheap. So, all right, if you have any questions for me, Bry, at my website's BryCoxWORKSHOPS, BryCox workshops.com. And thank you, Trajan, for jumping in. Trajan King of Invincible Startup.com. Until next time, America.
Bye, America.